At some point, Tommy Lloyd and the Wildcats have to break through to the Elite Eight, right?
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Labor Day. Welcome in, everybody, to the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. Hopefully you're enjoying your hot dogs and sleeping in and whatever else you did today. We are your hosts. That guy is Andy Patton. I'm Isaac Schade. I pointed the wrong way for those of you watching on YouTube, and you're joining us at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks so much for making us your first listener watch to get your Monday going the right way. We want to remind you, you can catch every episode ad-free on Amazon Music. Special shout out to all the everydayers here with us, all the members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord. That link, by the way, is in the show notes. We'd love to see you in there as we get ready for a brand new season. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Andy, on this Labor Day, we are getting into yet another team preview. It will be our 8th. Today, the Arizona Wildcats in their second year in the Big 12 Conference. Andy, we've already done 7. That's how it works. When you add 1 to 7, you get 8. UConn, Indiana, Marquette, Illinois, Alabama, St. John's, and Purdue. For those of you watching on YouTube, I'm going to point my finger up there because we're going to put a link up there where you can find a playlist of all of these team previews. And obviously, if you're listening, you can go back and find those in the podcast feed. So, Andy, here's where we're headed talking Arizona today. Caleb Love is gone. Who steps in to be their leader? They have 3 returning starters. Who's going to join them? And will they all still be starters? Also, the Tommy Lloyd era has been full of dynamic teams who have not been able to get past the Sweet 16. Is this the year to break through that ceiling? Breakout candidates, so much more, Andy, where we're headed today. Let me have you run us through what Arizona did last season, 4th year of Tommy Lloyd.
Yeah, and it's a lot of what we've seen, like you said, from Tommy Lloyd era teams since he took over at Arizona. It's unfathomable to call what Tommy Lloyd has done a failure, but at the same time, this team has not been able to break through in the NCAA tournament. Some of that has been some bad luck. Some of that has been running into some very good teams, but some of that has been losing to teams that, frankly, they should not have lost to. And I think that after the first couple of years, I know you and I spoke about this early on in Locked On College Basketball's history of like, well, let's give it a little bit more time. You know, he's a first-time head coach. He's only in his second year. He hasn't really gotten his guys in. Well, we're starting to run out of that timeline. And again, if this team was getting, 8 seeds, 9 seeds and losing in the second round or whatever, I think that would be a much more of a disappointment. They're getting 3 seeds, 4 seeds, 2 seeds, which is great regular season success, but still not making it far enough in the NCAA tournament, which is a little bit more agonizing, although at least it's better basketball for the most part in the regular season. Like last year, this team was great, 24-13 overall. They went 14-6 in their first year in the Big 12. For a team to suddenly be traveling to Texas regularly, traveling to Utah regularly, making a trip to Morgantown, West Virginia, like to all of a sudden adjust to a brand new schedule travel-wise and still go 14-6 is exceptional. Like this team was very, very good last year. They made it to the Big 12 championship game. They lost to Houston, one of the best teams in college basketball last year, very close to being your national champions. And Arizona beat Kansas and Texas Tech on the way to that game against Houston. Like this team was great, but then they get a 4 seed. Last year's NCAA tournament, not success was not as problematic as it's been in previous years. It wasn't Princeton that they lost to. It was Duke. And that's, that was after beating Akron and after beating Oregon in the second round. So they had some success last year, but ultimately still couldn't get past a very good Duke team. Even with Caleb Love on the roster, you thought maybe Caleb Love would do again.
One more magic bullet, Andy. One more magic bullet.
Find a way to get a W over Duke, but unfortunately he was not able to do that. And I think that's kind of the next big storyline for this team, Isaac, is they're entering the post-Caleb Love era. And Caleb Love was such a dynamic scorer and so talented, but also challenging. I mean, we called it the Caleb Love experience for a reason. And now you replace a player who took so many shots, who was such a volume shooter, volume scorer, just ball dominant player. And we're kind of going to see what Tommy Lloyd has, how he can build an offense without somebody like that in the mix.
Andy, yeah. And last year was such a weird kind of tale of 3 seasons, Andy. Look, I had kind of forgotten this, or maybe even never kind of realized it, but Arizona started out the year 4-5, and then they won 13 of their next 14, Andy, a 13-1 stretch in which the vast majority of those were Big 12 games. They went 11-1, and it was like, okay, this first year in the Big 12, sitting really pretty, kind of doing what Houston did the year before. But then they closed the regular season 3-5, and it was like, okay, a little bit more down to earth. Now we know what we're dealing with. So Andy, there we go. Trying to figure out how to do all that. You talked about the Caleb Love thing. Let's just go there. I think what it's going to mean for Arizona is fewer highs and fewer lows. And, you know, we're here at fantasy football season. My league drafts tomorrow night. And Andy, here's how I would compare it to fantasy football. I don't need guys that are going to score 25 points one week and 1 the next. I need the guys that are getting 12 points every weekend, right? And I think Arizona could find more consistency there and know what they're getting. Also, I think they might be able to find not only more consistency of performance, but also more balance. Caleb Love, had a 25% usage rate last year. Also, by the way, KJ Lewis was at 23%. You don't have either of those guys on the roster. And while it can be a negative in many ways because you lose all their production, it forces you, if you're Tommy Lloyd and the team, to be able to say, oh, Caleb's not here. Who's going to take that late shot clock shot now? Oh, KJ's not here. Who's doing that, right? And so for me, this team should, almost by definition, have more consistency of performance and more balanced performance across the board. So I think that could be ultimately a good thing, even though you lost that talent.
I agree. And I think the fact that Caleb Love's out the door and KJ Lewis, like, we can focus on, those are 2 really critical pieces, 2 guys who combined to have nearly half the usage rate, last year. But at the same time, you return 3 starters. And that is such a rarity in for any team in college basketball. And for a team like Arizona, like, yes, I think it's easy to focus on the 2 starters you lose, to focus on Love, to focus on KJ Lewis, who hits the transfer portal. But you bring back a Jaden Bradley, you bring back a Toby Awaka, you bring back an Anthony Del Orso. And to me, like, those weren't the guys who made a ton of headlines last year, especially because Caleb Love was so had the ball in his hands so often. But those are 3 guys who are going to step into bigger offensive roles. Again, they have to. You don't, I mean, again, we can use the money ball thing that we've talked about. You can recreate Caleb Love in the aggregate, and like, not exactly with those 3 players, but like, Anthony Del Orso takes on a bigger role offensively. He looks to score more than he did last year. Jaden Bradley looks to score more than he did last year. And then you have the incoming freshman, which I know we're going to get to kind of what that looks like. But this is a group that's more focused on scoring the basketball than previous freshman classes have been for Tommy Lloyd. And I think that is very much in response to losing somebody who, I mean, Caleb Love, that was his strength. That was what he did. You didn't bring Caleb Love onto your roster for anything other than a high volume scorer. Like, that is what he was there to do. And so now I don't think you just have one player step in and replace him. You have multiple guys, who gradually take more shots, who take a bigger role of the offense. How that pieces together, how Tommy finds a way to balance that, I think is arguably the most critical thing for him having success in year 5.
And Andy, because of, like, you talked about the track record of how strong things have been, right? Despite whatever's happened in the postseason, at some level, that is the randomness of the NCAA tournament, right? Like, for me, it's not a matter of if, but when a Tommy Lloyd coached Arizona team is going to break through. Like, the consistency of the analytics of it. So if you go to KenPom, all 4 years of the Tommy Lloyd era, they've been top 15 in offensive efficiency, 7, 10, 11, and 11. All 4 years, they've been top 40 in defensive efficiency, 21, 39, 10, and 38. Like, sure, that could fall apart, but I don't expect it to, because Tommy Lloyd is still at the helm. And when you look at it outside of the context of what's happened in those off seasons, you could say they've been a top 4 seed every year in the NCAA tournament. They've been a 1 seed and 2 seeds as 3 of those 4 years, and they've made the Sweet 16 3 times. So outside of context, it's like, that's really, really good. And I think it's good to just zoom out and see all that, despite, yes, they have lost earlier than their seed would suggest in 3 of his 4 seasons. And so, Andy, I think all of that comes together. Coach Lloyd has proven himself capable of knowing how to do this, along with his staff. And I don't, until it's proven otherwise, I'm going to continue to bet that Coach Lloyd and his staff can get it figured out.
Well, like we said, they got 3 starters coming back, which I think is such a critical thing for this Arizona team. But what's arguably even more critical is who are the other 2 starters? Who replaces Caleb Love in the starting lineup? And it looks like it could be a couple of freshmen. And we're going to talk about that, what this might look like for Tommy Lloyd's team next year, coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, college football is back, and I could not be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there is nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets to games can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. And that's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. You always see what you're going to pay. I pulled up Gametime, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about the best college football games every year for as low as $25. Honestly, it's faster, it's cheaper, and it's less stressful than any other way that I have bought tickets. This weekend, Michigan, Oklahoma, the next big game. It is in Norman. You're going to have to pay, but you can find tickets for $318. That is an incredible deal with fees already included. That's in section 101, folks, row 31. That is a fantastic deal to see some high-level college football action between Michigan and Oklahoma. So, folks, take the guesswork out of buying your college football tickets by using Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go. Download Gametime today. All right, folks, Isaac and I are going to be back talking Arizona and talking about this new look roster for Tommy Lloyd. But first, we do have an important request for you all. Locked On would like to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. You can also find the QR code on YouTube for those of you watching. Thank you for helping us out. All right, Isaac, let's continue this conversation here, taking a look at this Arizona basketball roster. We talked some storylines. We talked about Tommy Lloyd's success in the regular season, lack of success in the NCAA tournament. We talked about last year's roster, the departure of Caleb Love. But again, I think a key part of this team is to not focus on the departures, but to focus on the guys coming back, because you get Jaden Bradley back, you get Toby Awaka back, you get Anthony Del Orso back. All 3 of those guys started, I think, 28 or more games for this team last year. You also get Mo Krivas back. He only played 8 games last year because of an injury. And then when he went down, they ended up playing Henry Vasar more. Vasar was excellent, but he's hit the transfer portal and headed all the way out to Chapel Hill to play for North Carolina. And so getting Krivas back and getting him healthy is a key part for this team. Only one transfer portal addition for Tommy Lloyd's team, Evan Nelson coming over from Harvard. So I think it would be easy to focus on that, but there's a great freshman class coming in, Isaac, and I know we're going to focus a lot on those freshmen, but I think a big part of this is, as Trilly Donovan so often says on social media, for those of you who follow, sometimes the best gets are the ones you already have. And like being able to return 3 key starters and a potentially very important piece in Mo Krivas is a huge win for Tommy Lloyd and the Cats.
That's absolutely right, Andy. In this day and age, it's almost unheard of, especially at this level, right? I feel like we're seeing it more at the mid and low major levels where maybe you can maintain some guys, whatever it is. And you made a great point that these guys all started 28 or more games. Last year, Jaden Bradley started every game. Tobe Awaka all but one. And then with Del Orso, he's the one that started 28, but critically, it was the last 28, right? He entered the starting lineup in game 9 or 10 and then never left it. And that to me, I would rather have that than he started and then didn't start the last 9.
Right.
And so this is the good version of that. Also, you always wonder, Krivas only played 8 games last year. I think he started 1. And you always wonder coming back, especially from a lower extremity injury like this, how are they going to be? I think it was back in July. I forget the specific date, but pronounced himself full go. And so I'm going to take him at his word on that. We know how athletes do sometimes. But yeah, as you said, knowing that Bradley, Owaka, and Del Orso are all starters, Krivas could be if needed, especially if none of these freshmen do what we expect them to do. And you just don't know, right? With all of these other guys, we've seen it at the high major collegiate level, and we know they can hold up and do well. And so I'm, Andy, very excited about Peat, about Brayden Burries, and about Dwayne Aristode in particular. And it's Peat, man. That's the head of this class. He's a top 10 guy, coveted power forward by people all over the nation. And so he should slide right in. But I think having the Peat should be great, but you've also got Krivas that can play the 4. And so hopefully either one of them is ready to go from a freshman / injury standpoint, if you'll go with me on that, to pair with Owaka in the front court. And that's a great thing to look at. But, then you've got Bradley and Del Orso as probably your 1 or 3. And so, Andy, I'm looking at it, assuming probably Brayden Burries is the guy that comes in and snatches that starting shooting guard position. But you've got the King's son is in town, Andy, with Bryce James. There was so much conversation about Bronny. There hasn't been as much about Bryce, and that's because he hasn't projected to be even as high level as Bronny was. And so that's why you just haven't heard as much about him. Ivan Karchenkov is a guy coming over from the international waters who had several different high major schools after him this offseason. So it'll be very interesting to see how he slides in and what he's able to do kind of as a wing, could maybe slide up to small ball 4 down to big shooting guard. But some interesting pieces. The question is how many of them fit, because Andy, I want you to be the one to talk about this because you've been saying it so well, but kind of compare the way in which Tommy Lloyd almost has to rely on these newcomers in a way that he maybe didn't last season.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's been brought up about Tommy Lloyd and really was loud last year with Carter Bryant in particular was kind of a hesitation or an unwillingness to play freshmen as much as maybe other folks thought that he should. And I think that this is the year where we kind of get the best sense of whether that's true or not. And Carter Bryant, again, was a guy who didn't play a huge role. And a lot of people thought, oh, there's no way he's going to be a lottery pick. There's no way he should be a borderline top 10 pick in the NBA draft. He couldn't even start for Arizona last year. And I think some of that was Tommy deferring to playing older guys. Obviously, Caleb Love took up a huge role. KJ Lewis played a big role. Del Orso, earned his way into that starting lineup and played great down the stretch for that team. And so Carter Bryant was not somebody who played a huge role, but he is a 3-and-D wing, and his skill set translates really well to the NBA level. And he didn't need to be a guy who, took 10, 12 shots a game at Arizona. Peat and Brayden Burries are more offensive focused prospects. They are guys who are expected to come in and play bigger roles right away. If at least one of them will start, guaranteed, there's a pretty good chance that both of them will start. I'm a little curious if we do see, it depends on whether they view Peat as a starting 4 right away, or if they want to play him at the 3, potentially play a bigger lineup. If Krivas is healthy, they could start Krivas and Owaka together, play Peat at the 3, and then play Bradley and Del Orso and have Burries coming off the bench. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that starting lineup, but I could see Tommy doing it. I could see that being the way it goes out. And if Brayden Burries is coming off the bench in favor of a guy like Krivas, then that narrative around Tommy Lloyd being hesitant to play freshman is going to get very, very loud. But if Peat and Brayden Burries both start, or if they both play 25 plus minutes per game, if Peat leads this team in scoring, which is frankly possible, even with Del Orso and Bradley, I think it is possible that Peat is that guy. He is a very, very gifted scorer. He can play the 3 or the 4. I think he's talented enough to do both. He's long and rangy and athletic. if he's that guy and they're really deferring to him and letting him go, then I think that narrative has to be quiet for Tommy Lloyd, because maybe he just didn't have the pieces that he thought, were necessary to play big minutes right away. So it's something I'm interested in. The other big narrative around Tommy Lloyd, historically dating back to his time at Gonzaga, is his ability to recruit internationally. Arizona hasn't done that, hasn't relied on it as much because they haven't had to. They've been able to get 5-star prospects like Peat and Burries and Carter Bryant last year. So they haven't needed to, but that makes me very interested in what these international guys that they do have coming in are going to be able to do, because it's been a huge success point for Tommy Lloyd throughout his coaching career. And I wouldn't be surprised if they found themselves some gems on the international market as well.
All right, Andy, one other starter that needs to be replaced is Trey Townsend. We haven't mentioned his name. Obviously came to Arizona last year after knocking off Kentucky the year before. Obviously it was his teammate that got all the love there.
Good old Jack Golke.
Good old Golke, baby. So anyway, that's just, I just wanted to mention his name because it was fun seeing him. So Andy, I feel like we've kind of alluded to it. I'm in terms of our starters, I'm looking at those 3 returning guys all being in the lineup, along with Brayden, Burries, and Koa Peat. Are you aligned on that, or would you go a different way?
I think that's what I would do. I think that's the starting lineup that I would probably roll out there. I think that there's a real chance if Krivas is healthy that he starts and Burries comes off the bench. That would slide Del Orso down to the 2. That would slide Peat down to the 3. Again, I don't necessarily agree with that, but it could create some serious matchup problems. I mean, Krivas, Awaka, and Peat all starting is a huge lineup. Even Del Orso is a big 2. So that would be a matchup nightmare. Burries could be like a really, really awesome 6th man off the bench, but I think they're best served starting Burries and having Krivas come off the bench, especially if he's not quite at 100%. But I wanted to toss that out there as an alternative starting lineup that I could see Tommy Lloyd in Arizona running this year.
Nice thing is it's probably going to be dependent on which of those groups works best together, which they'll get to see obviously in practice, but they might experiment with both, right? Like that's certainly a possibility as well. Ultimately, they need to be able to hit on 8 of these guys, regardless of who's starting, who's finishing, and who's in between. If they can, man, I've just always feel like in college basketball, if you can get 8 dudes that it works together with a nice balance between front and backcourt, you're in good shape. Andy, that said, we always have been liking to mention a breakout in this section. For me, and it's Anthony Del Orso, right? The numbers at Campbell 2 years ago were insane. Last year, the same was true as he came up to Arizona, right? Like his points per game obviously took a drop, but his free throw percentage was up at 90% last year. Low volume, sure. But his 3-point percentage was a career high at like 40-something% on 3.3 attempts a game. He had done, even on a higher volume, he had been like 38 at Campbell the year before and still in the 80s from free throws. And so with everything around Anthony Del Orso, with probably a higher volume this year, again, as you said earlier, probably needs to be more aggressive offensively this year because, man, the dude's a bucket in a lot of ways, and so there's a lot of possibility there. And so Del Orso, for me, for Arizona's breakout.
I would probably also pick Del Orso, but since that's not fun, I'm going to go with Evan Nelson, who's the transfer coming over from Harvard. It's not as much a breakout as more of like a, hey, this is a guy that I think can really contribute for this team and maybe isn't getting as much attention. He only averaged 9 points a game last year at Harvard, so you're thinking like, oh, yeah, a guy in the Ivy League who didn't even score in double figures, but he was super efficient. He was 92% from the free throw line. He was over 50% on 2-pointers. He was over 40% from 3, and that was on 3.5 attempts per game. So, like, I mean, we're talking about a 50, 40, 90 guy. Like that is exceptional. And he wasn't quite 50 from the field, but like he was a very efficient scorer. He's a 6'2" guard. I think he's kind of your backup one. He was not an elite passer, but he averaged 3 assists per game. So he can do it a little bit. He's 1.5 steals at Harvard. I think he's going to be a guy who sort of like Del Orso last year. I don't think he's going to climb into the starting lineup necessarily, but he's going to be a really valuable rotation piece for this team. And I think is going to be a better player than a lot of people are maybe expecting him to be for Arizona in the Big 12.
All right, gang. Is this the year Arizona finally breaks through to the Elite Eight in the Tommy Lloyd era? We're going to make our predictions and give you Arizona's floor and ceiling coming up to wrap the show in just a second. Right after I tell you about Rugiet. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them out. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time for you to meet Rugiet Ready, which is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in about 15 minutes. But the effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control for whenever the moment is right. Maybe traditional options haven't worked for you. Well, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. I think what's really cool is that it's completely online. Rugiet connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly and directly to your door. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. Again, that's Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. Andy, let's move to Arizona's schedule here. Big 12 going to 18-game conference schedule. That means there's 13 in the non-con. Arizona only has 6 of them officially announced on their website. Thankfully, it's the 6 high major games, but we already have the other 7 just because of enterprising people who have reported it. But it doesn't matter because I'm only going to tell you about the 6 that matter. So on the first day of the season, Monday, November 3rd, Arizona will be playing Florida, the reigning national champs in the Hall of Fame series in Vegas at T-Mobile. A little bit about a week and a half later, Friday, November 14th against UCLA in the Hall of Fame series down in LA at the Intuit Dome. And then they will travel across the country, unlike UCLA's willingness to do, on Wednesday, November 19th. You're welcome, Andy. That was for you.
That was for me.
True road game at UConn. That's going to be a great matchup. And then Saturday, December 6th against Auburn. Again, that one will be at home, but then the next Saturday, the 13th, they'll go down to Birmingham to play Alabama. Maybe you should have just gone down there to play both of them. I don't know, Andy. Could have been easier. And then the next Saturday, December 20th, against San Diego State as another part of that Hall of Fame series at the Phoenix Arena. As per so many teams, what they do, man, all those Saturdays in December are just on fire. Auburn, Bama, San Diego State, back to back to back. Andy, I love it. What do you make of this non-con schedule?
Yeah, not only are we highlighting their 6 like high major games, we're going to count San Diego State. It's 6 elite games. Like this is an incredible 6-game stretch for this team. Like we're not just talking like, oh, like it's not Virginia Tech, like since you just use them as an example, or South Carolina for that matter. It's not like it's not
you guys over there. Yes,
right. It is the defending champs in Florida. It is the previous back-to-back champs in UConn. It is UCLA, who is perennially in the top 25. It is Auburn, who was in the Final Four last year. It is Alabama, who has been outstanding under Coach Oates. And it is San Diego State, who was in the national championship a couple of years ago and has also been fantastic the last few years under Coach Brian Dutcher. Like this is an incredible non-conference for those 6 games. The rest of the schedule, it doesn't matter to me. I don't really care. Like, I'm not going to evaluate Arizona's non-conference schedule based on their 7th best game. Like it doesn't matter to me. Like this is an incredible stretch. The fact that not very many of these games are at home for them. There's some neutral site games. Again, if you and I complained about neutral site gagames every time we talked about a non-conference schedule, we would have that conversation 15 times a week. It's not worth doing. But I like the schedule a lot. I think, I mean, again, UCLA, they're playing them in LA. They're playing, they're playing Alabama and Birmingham. Like they're playing some really tough games in some what'll be hostile environments. This is Tommy Lloyd knowing that he's got 3 starters back and that he's got an opportunity to get this team not only into the Sweet 16, but into the Elite 8, get a potential Final Four team. And he knows that we got to challenge this team. And the Big 12 is challenging enough. And so many teams in the Big 12 are not putting together schedules like this. They're choosing not to, and Arizona has not subscribed to that notion since Tommy Lloyd has taken over. This is not unusual for them, but this is a particularly excellent group of games that Tommy Lloyd's team is going to go through this year.
Andy, that's a great point. A quick history lesson in my head as you were talking. All 6 of those teams have been in the Final Four at least once in the past 5 seasons, right? Florida last year, UCLA 2021, UConn 23 and 24, Auburn last year, Bama the year before, and San Diego State in 20 3. So
Yeah,
crazy,
that's wild.
crazy stuff there, man. All right.
Mhm.
Big 12 games. We don't have the actual schedule yet, but we know the opponents. Home only is Cincinnati, Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, West Virginia. Road only Baylor, Central Florida, Colorado, Houston, TCU, Utah, and home and away, obviously Arizona State, and then also BYU, Kansas. Andy, that home and away is tough. Those 4 games, BYU and Kansas. But I will say the away only feels decently manageable. Obviously, you got to go to Houston. I think they're by far the best team in the Big 12 and maybe the nation. But outside of that, Baylor, UCF, Colorado, TCU, and Utah, dude, I would like give me one Houston for those 5, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that this is a schedule that Arizona should be able to have some success with. Obviously, we've talked about this before. Like Utah's not a particularly good team, but it is a tough road trip. Because
that's true.
and they'll likely play Utah and BYU back to back, I would assume, and that's tough. That's not going to be easy for them just because of the elevation and all the changes that you go through there. But this is about as good as you can get for your away only schedule, with the exception of Houston. And again, you kind of just accept that that's going to be a really tough game, and you try to knock out the other 5 as best you can. And I think that that's the case here. And I'm not saying Arizona can't win at Houston; they absolutely can, but that's going to be a challenging one. But I'm really excited to see this. I'm excited they get Kansas twice, and I'm excited that they get BYU twice, because I think that Peat versus AJ Dibansa, man, that's going to be some phenomenal cooking between those 2 freshmen in those games. That's going to be a blast.
Well, and Darren Peterson in the Kansas game.
Yeah,
I mean,
true. Yeah, he's all right too.
Maybe just okay. So Andy, projecting that out, you said it just a minute ago. The Big 12 is always tough and difficult. Where when it's all said and done, where does Arizona finish up in this conference standings?
Yeah, I got them finishing 5th in the conference. I got them finishing behind Houston and Texas Tech. Those 2 I think, are top 5 teams in college basketball, and I think it's gonna bear itself out with how they play in the regular season. And then I got BYU and Iowa State 3rd and 4th, probably in that order. And then I got Arizona there. And to me, there's kind of a decent gap at that spot. I think Kansas could kind of creep into that conversation, but to me, those are the top 5 teams. I think most likely Arizona is a tick below that. I could see 4th. I could see 6th. I have a fairly hard time seeing a whole lot higher or lower than that.
Yeah, I'm with you at 5th, and so we'll just keep moving on. Let's project the regular season record, Andy, heading in to the Big 12 tournament. What you got for non-con, conference, and then total?
Yeah, I got them going 10-3 in the non-con, which, considering those 6 challenging games, is I would think if you're an Arizona fan, you take winning 3 of those 6. I don't know exactly which ones it'll be. I have a hard time seeing them beating UConn at UConn, and Bama in Birmingham are going to be tough ones. But I think that they get a couple of these. I think they probably get UCLA. I think they might have a chance against Auburn at home, but it's going to be tough. I think they go 10-3, excuse me. And then in conference play, I think because they're battle tested, because they have 3 starters returning, I have them going 13-5, and because I think their schedule is fairly manageable as well. I think that helps. So that will put them at 23-8 overall. That's going to put them in Tommy Lloyd's streak of being a top 4 seed is certainly not going to end if they go 23-8, and I can promise you that.
Andy, I was 1 game worse than you on both things. Non-con, I had 9-4. I think, man, as you said, as long as they beat all their bye games, if they can get 2 or 3 wins against those 6 opponents, I think you feel, good about yourself. And then I had 12-6 in conference. But if the pieces come together with the freshmen, that's where I'm like, the uncertainty creeps in a little bit for me, is why I held back a little bit. So I was in total 2 games behind you at 21-10. So Andy, I put the floor and ceiling here. Tell me if you hear this, see it. Floor. I don't think they'll be worse than 6 in the Big 12. And that, like, if I'm saying your floor is 6 in the Big 12, like, that is a good thing. In that scenario, 5 or 6 seed, lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And I think it's because the freshmen don't hit. The Awaka, Krivas, Peat front court doesn't really translate and work together. Maybe Krivas isn't fully healthy after all. The offense dips for the first time into the 20s or 30s at Ken Pom, and the defense outside the top 50. Conversely, I think the ceiling is 3rd in the Big 12. And just to be honest, I don't see them getting above Houston in either BYU or Texas Tech. I think one or both of those schools is better probably than Arizona. So I think 3rd is the ceiling, with a 2 or 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. And then they finally get to that Elite 8 or beyond, right? Like, that would be a great thing. And if so, it's because Peat goes off and the offense and defense continue to be what they've been under Tommy Lloyd. It's just that their luck is better in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I would stretch both maybe just a little bit,
Okay,
but
do it.
honestly, I think that's really good. I think that there's a chance they finish 7th in the Big 12, and I think that that would be less so like, oh, Arizona's really tanking. It's more like, oh, actually Baylor's good, or actually Kansas State figures it out, or something like that. But
Yep.
like, I think like they're not going to finish lower than 7th. 7th is like the absolute floor, I think, in my mind. And then ceiling, I'm kind of with you. I think maybe again, it would probably be like extenuating circumstances where there's like injuries at one of those schools or something. Maybe they could finish second, maybe, but like I think third's actually a pretty good spot to have them there. And yeah, and I think it's the same thing. The ceiling is this team going to the Final Four and contending for a national championship. Like everything has to come together, but this team has the talent 1 through 8 or 1 through 9 to do that if those pieces come together. And the floor is a 6 seed or even a dreaded 7-8 seed somewhere in there and a loss in the first round. I think that's pretty unlikely, but if enough things don't go their way, that could happen. More than likely, though, for my projection for this team, I have them finishing probably as a 3 seed, as maybe as a 4 seed, somewhere in there. I mean, if they're 23-8, they're probably going to be a 3 seed. Like it would be hard for them to be lower than a 3 seed in my mind there. And I do think that they're going to struggle in the NCAA tournament with a young team and an experienced team. I wouldn't be surprised if they fail to make the Sweet 16, even as a 3 or a 4 seed. We've seen a lot of those 6 seeds play in those play-in games. A lot of times one of those teams advances, whether it's the 11 seed winning their play-in game and then beating the 6 seed and then going all the way to the Sweet 16. We've seen that before. Heck, we just talked about UCLA. They went to the Final Four as a play-in team, so it can happen. So I feel like Arizona's a little bit vulnerable to that kind of thing. So that's where I'm going to predict them for this year.
Andy, I'm right with you. I had a 3 seed, and I hate to do it, Andy. I hate to do it, but I'm going to have them losing in the Sweet 16 yet again, man. I hate it, but 5 straight years for Tommy Lloyd. Hey, but that would be 4 Sweet 16s, dude. That is crazy, right? But I know Arizona fans are like, we got to get past it. So, Andy, that's where I'm at. We're aligned on it.
Folks, that's going to wrap it up for us today. A bit of a downer note. Sorry for Arizona fans on that note, but I'm excited to see this team this year. I think they're going to be a lot of fun, especially those young guns for this club. But that's going to wrap it up for us today. We're going to be back with more team previews. We're going to start our conference preview series at the end of the week, folks. We're in September. We are getting closer and closer to the college basketball season. I cannot wait. But folks, that is, again, we're going to be done for today. As always, I want to say apologies to the lawyer family. Didn't get a lot of Big Ten talk in today. Cheers to the McBruins. We did talk about them a little bit. Let's go Wild Popes. And until Tuesday, peace out.